Brilliant. Joanna, thank you so much for your kind words. And thank you everyone for joining this afternoon. It means a lot to me. So thank you very much for having me. Before we dive into personalization and customer journeys, I'd like to say a few things about the hour we have ahead of us. What I'm trying to do today is to share more about what I do, which is related to personalization and customer journeys, and what it actually means, why is it important, and why I think companies are more often looking into introducing personalization into their marketing. But before we dive in, I wanted to share with you the structure of the call today. I'm planning to speak for about 40 minutes so that we have 20 minutes at the end of the session for your questions. And I would really appreciate if we were able to create a comfortable environment for all of you to raise your questions, concerns, or share your own stories about personalization. That would be really helpful for both of us, you and I. Lastly, before we start, I wanted to say that I completely respect your choices about your cameras and your voice. So feel free to stay off the camera, off the mic, as long as it is what you want. Obviously, if you feel like joining at some point or raising a question, that is completely fine as well. Whatever floats your boat, it's your choice and I respect them. I have a second screen here on my side to monitor the chat. So if you, as we go through the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them into conversation, and I will try to monitor the chat as well so that we can incorporate your questions straight away. And now, without further ado, let's dive straight in. I'm moving on to the first slide, which is to say we all come in different shapes, sizes, forms. We all lead different lives. We have different aspirations, different goals. We want different things at different time. And our uniqueness matters. If we have learned anything from the past year and a half, it's the sense of belonging, sense of community. And brands, they pay attention. As long as there is dollar involved, they listen and they care and they try to make sure that whatever they try to promote and put in front of you, they are doing it the right thing at the right time and showing the right item, product, service to the right type of person. So in today's call, I'd like to cover what personalization means in terms of the definition. Then we can look into a few examples, we can discuss them even, and look at how to start or where do you begin if you want to implement personalization within the existing structures of your organization. If we've learned anything from the past pandemic, that is that consumer behavior has changed dramatically. Different people started to engage with brands on a completely different level. In the industry that I am part of, commercial aviation, I think it's no surprise to anyone if I say that it was the most exhausting year and a half in my life. Dealing with crisis on daily basis for so consistent period of time has been great. I know it sounds crazy to say, but it has, because it has helped me develop more skills and understand our customers better. On a large scale, there are two completely different streams of direction on the global level. In one way, more and more people shop through companies like Amazon, one big marketplace where you can get anything. Or in the context of the Middle East, that could be Noon. People go to one place, search for a thing, a product, and they have it delivered to them very conveniently without really knowing what is the producer behind, because they don't need to know that, right? On the other hand, there is a trend that is also growing quite rapidly, and that is D2C, direct to consumer. What it means is that the producer of the product or the service is selling directly to the consumer. A good example of two brands I can think of for D2C would be the beauty brand Glossier or a Dollar Shave Club. Some of you might have heard. It's a subscription model where you can order your equipment, and it's delivered to you conveniently directly from the brand. There are a few reasons why people do this. First, if you control the shipment as much as the product, you have a control over the whole experience. And therefore, you can provide a really great experience to your customer. And that's what all of this is all about, really. Providing a great experience so that your customer becomes a loyal customer and keeps coming back, buying from you and your brand. But let's look at the definition of what marketing personalization really means. It is the sense of idea where you implement a system of using data in engaging with your customer, which allows you to treat them on an individual level. So in other words, it's one-to-one marketing. Example could be that if I'm now looking at buying a house, the ads I'm seeing from the brands around me starts reflecting that because I have given signals that I intend to buy a house. But you may be asking, why would anyone be going through so much effort to provide a personalized experience to consumers on an individual level? Isn't it a little bit creepy to be so specific and so targeted? And I'm with you, there are definitely privacy concerns that we need to think about. But according to a study from 2018, 4 in 5 consumers are more likely to make a purchase when brands offer a personalized experience. 4 out of 5. That's insane. So any brand not jumping onto personalization and consumer journeys, defining them and implementing strategies to target people, to show them what they want to see, are simply not seeing the potential. And I'm sure you all have seen examples of bad personalization. We all have. I can think of an example when I started seeing ads for child care equipment without ever having any idea about starting my own family to begin with. So these are the examples where personalization went wrong. Some signals got mixed, and suddenly you started seeing things you were not interested in. On the other hand, personalization can also be very, very specific. And again, think in your own experience. Have you ever thought to yourself, without talking about something, suddenly you started seeing ads on your phone, exactly the ads about a product that you were talking about with your friend perhaps, but never mentioned that online? The predictive models involved in personalization are really, really powerful. And they can sometimes make it more creepy, but on the other, and most of the times, they really deliver a great experience. But let's take a moment to look into the benefits from both sides of the coin. On one side, there is the consumer, and on the other side, there is the brand. So what is in it for the consumer? Well, we spoke about it already. There is relevance. Suddenly, your brand is able to provide the type of content that your consumer is looking for, and therefore they are more likely to engage with you because they see that you know what they want. If your brand is able to provide personalized experiences, it can also help you target the person at the right time, which is crucial in many moments, and also provide valuable suggestions. Here, an example could be you looking into buying a ticket. Let's fly somewhere abroad. And once you complete your purchase, suddenly you are targeted with ads that say, would it be smart to also have travel insurance? This is a valuable suggestion for many people who are likely to engage with such experience because yes, people tend to buy travel insurance once they purchase their ticket or their hotel or car rental. All of these are the types of experiences where personalization can really help you gain better performance. And that brings me to the other side of the coin. What's in it for the brand? Well, we already spoke about exceptional customer experience. It is a market differentiator. Either you have it or you don't. And let me tell you, with companies like Google and Facebook, who are being the benchmark in personalization, and trying to get to their level is falling short. They, whether we like it or not, they provide the benchmark for all of the internet. Essentially, if it's not as easy as searching for things at Google, or if it's not as easy to go through Instagram reels that are personalized to your taste, what's the point really? So there is definitely a huge, huge objective to deliver an exceptional customer experience. And as I mentioned, companies pay attention to things where they see potential to grow their revenue. So when you employ personalization strategies, there is high likelihood of you improving your revenue as well as your conversion rate. What it means is that you need to attract less prospects, less people to convert to your customers, which is great. It brings down the cost per acquisition. It brings down your costs, and therefore you can get more money out of it at the end of the day. More and more often, companies like Qatar Airways, they really heavily look into the loyalty part. Delivering a loyalty experience or providing experience that is worth becoming a loyal member or loyal ambassador of the brand is really worth it. There is a math behind the number of dollars you need to spend to acquire a new customer versus the number of dollars you need to spend to make your existing customer buy again. And it's all about experience. In the context of a commercial airline, if you liked flying with the airline, if you liked the way you were treated from the time you decided to book to the time you flew, you are likely to try next time book with them again, or you will at least try to search for the flight. And if the price point will be excited or within your range, the likelihood of you purchasing, or as we say in marketing, converting again, would be slightly higher than the generic average. So there is definitely retention, boost to customer retention. There is increased brand loyalty. And last but not least, with personalization, and this is more of a warning, I'd say, there needs to be consistency across channels. If you decide to go for personalization as a company, as a brand, you need to personalize across all the touch points. Because if you decide to personalize only one of them, being the app, for example, while the desktop experience remains completely untouched, there would be something called consumer experience friction. The way people experience your brand on the website would be completely different to how they experience your brand through your app, which in turn could harm your brand. So again, consistency across channels is really key. But let's take a moment here. Let's bring it from the way of how things are and what they mean into a real sort of example. I'd like you to think about two questions, and I would really appreciate if someone was brave enough to pop the answers into the chat. The first question is, what is the next destination you'd like to travel to? It can be anything. There are no right or wrong answers. So what is the next destination you'd like to travel to? And second question, what kind of cuisine type you like the most? What type of cuisine? Vietnamese, Korean, Mexican, or Italian? Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. All I'm trying to do here is to understand your preference. So I'd like to give you a moment to type in your question, your answers, sorry, in the chat for me. That would be very helpful. Or you can also unmute yourself and even shout at me if you want. Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much, Ekta. So we have Bali here, and we have Italian food. That sounds very nice. We have Spain and Arabic food. That sounds also very nice. Oh, plenty of options coming in. Thank you very much, guys. This is very sweet. So how about I go with Leah. Leah, thank you very much for sharing. I can see that you would like to go to China and that you like Lebanese. So 1 second, you might have seen that my presentation has dropped. That's completely fine and expected. You'd like to go to China and you like Lebanese. Let me, oh wow, many more coming in. Thank you very much, guys. This is really exciting. What I was going to do with this little example is to show you something. Let me just quickly re-enable my presentation so that you get to see what I would like to share with you. Here's an example of how companies use data, personal data, to introduce personalization to something as simple as booking confirmation. So you remember Joanna mentioned I work for Qatar Airways. So here's another example of flying with an airline. On one side, which is the left, you get to see a very generic email with a simple KPI. The KPI of this email is to have the customer click on the button at the end and go to the website so that they can log in whatever food option they'd like to have on their flight. On the right side, you can see the personalized version of the very same message with the very same KPI. The KPI on the right and on the left are the same. In both cases, you want to have the person click on the button, go to your website, and figure out whatever option they'd like to eat while they fly with you. And now my question goes to Leah. Leah, which of these two options would you feel more likely to click on? You can pop it in the chat again, absolutely fine. Or you can just tell me. Definitely option number 2. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. That's where I was going with this example. These are the type of experiences where once you feel seen, you're likely to perform whatever the person behind the communication was intending you to do, because it just simply feels right. It feels like the person knows, or the brand knows you, and they know what you want at the time when you want it. So Leah here flying to China on her next flight is likely to book her favorite Lebanese cuisine because that's what she likes. And companies need to recognize that, because we all leave a lot of digital footprint while we go through the internet, all the apps. So that is one example. Let's dive into another one. I suppose this brand needs no introduction. The past year and a half, I personally spent hours watching Netflix. And Netflix, without many people knowing, is actually at the forefront of personalization. Actually, they have developed, designed, and come up with a lot of machine learning algorithms behind personalization. And why, would you ask? Well, Netflix is a subscription-based model. They want people to subscribe to their services and stay subscribed for as long as possible. And to do that, they need you to keep coming to them for entertainment. It's simple. So let's look at something that I pulled for this call. I called my friends in Dubai, in Taiwan, in Brazil, and Lithuania, and I asked them a very simple question. When you go to your Netflix app, search for Matrix, a movie that is very old, but still very relevant to what we are talking about at the moment, and search for Matrix. And then once you do, send me a screenshot of what you see. Here, I'd like to draw your attention to the simple fact that the same movie is marketed using completely different visuals in different markets. If you follow my lead on the left, upper corner, you see matrix, how I see it in London. You can see one of the male characters sitting in a chair in the first tile. That's how I see matrix being advertised to me here in London. In the UAE, the same movie is advertised with 3 characters because maybe my friend used to watch a lot of movies where there is a group of people leading as the lead characters. Then we look at Matrix and how it's advertised in Taiwan. The original Matrix is using the same creative in this case, is on the top right corner with Taiwanese title. But if you look just to the Brazilian example, it's again Matrix, but completely different visual with completely different person, completely different actor right there. And the last but not least is the Lithuania. Again, completely different setup, similar to what we can see in the UAE. And if you look at the examples of other matrices, like Matrix Reloaded, on the one in the UK versus the one in the UAE, again, very different visuals. But that's not just Matrix. We can do the same for Money Heist, another great show. You can see that some of the shows here will show you an example of the professor, while others show a different type of creatives. What I'm trying to show you here is that Netflix is tailoring the artwork to individual needs of individual people. This is an example from a search bar where they don't go as crazy as they go on the homepage when they are trying to promote a picture they think you might like. And hear me out here. If you go to your Netflix account on the homepage, you will see random movies from some of the ones you need to continue with, some of the ones that you put to your list, and there will be also some recommendations. All these movies and their artwork, the way it's designed and produced and presented to you, reflects on who you are and what you have seen in the past. So again, example is, if the 3 last movies that you watched were movies with strong female character, the movies that are promoted to you are likely to have also a strong female character, and the artwork is likely to present this strong female character on the artwork, because the likelihood of you choosing something that you have enjoyed in the past is greater than showing you something generic. In fact, Netflix designs over 1,200 artworks per each title. Obviously, it's huge number. Many different languages come to play, different markets, different cultural norms, but also your personal experience comes to place. And because they are learning how to lean onto machine learning, where they just upload all these options and have the algorithm decide using whatever you have told them without really realizing you told them anything. But they measure how much time you spend with movies. They measure where you click, how often. And all of these touch points, all of these data points are used to show you something that is very specific to you and that is designed to keep you spend more time with Netflix, which is the only KPI here. Have you enjoyed your time with Netflix? Let's move on. What are the metrics to keep an eye on here? Well, we already talked about it. It's if you look at it from the question perspective, you want to know who experienced what, or in other words, who saw what type of experience, or who clicked on what type of email. And then you want to be able to say which of the options that were available performed better against the set KPIs. Here, KPIs means the key performance indicators, how you define success. And different marketing strategies will have different objectives. Some objectives could be to sell more. Some could be to have more people to come to your website. Some could be to have people to subscribe to your newsletter. Some people to leave a review. So that's very much specific to the brand and to the business. But if you look at the actual metrics that are very good to keep an eye on, I'd say you want to be able to monitor reach, views, or impressions on each of the experience you're trying to put together. As I mentioned, there is dollar involved, and therefore you're looking at revenue per visit, how much money each customer spends per visit on average. And as you can see, this can go either up or it can follow downward trend. And that's for you to understand whether or not your experiences are meeting people's expectations. We talked about conversion rate. How many people need to come to your website to convert into a purchase or whatever objective you have set for yourself. Shopping cart abandonment. I suppose this also needs no introduction. You go through a website, try to shop for the day, you change your mind, you don't complete your booking. Many companies these days would end up sending you an email saying, hey, we noticed you left some items in your shopping cart. How about we give you 10% off if you complete your booking in the next 2 hours? And it works. It does work. You can show people that you know what they have been trying to purchase, and you can also show them that you have the intention for them to come back to you, and you may even incentivize them, giving them a promo code so that they can actually complete their purchase while saving. What is also involved here is something called customer lifetime value. Customer lifetime value is something that marketeers use to define value of each of the customer as they navigate throughout the life cycle. I know that this sounds a bit wishy-washy, so I'm going to give you another example. Imagine that you are buying, let's say, cosmetics. You have just discovered a new brand. You don't know nothing about it, but you know that you'd like to try because you were told it's a good brand. So you try to do your research. And the brand knows nothing about you. You are just a very generic customer, potential customer who came to the website trying to learn more about what they sell. Your value to the business is different to someone else who has been buying their products for over a decade. So your customer lifetime value changes in time. And the business needs to be able to understand at what stage each customer is, whether it's a returning customer, a customer who used to shop with them and then suddenly left, or whether it's a completely new person who might be willing to buy from you. Each of these people, each of these groups of people will have different value to the business, and therefore different strategies will be put behind each of these groups to make them happy. Last but not least, I would recommend to monitor something called sentiment. You want to know how people think about you and how they speak about you as a brand. Because sometimes personalization can get out of hand, and we spoke about it already. And suddenly it starts feeling like it's a little too much when the brand suddenly seems to know a little too much about you. And it can turn into a negative experience. People suddenly start doubting whether and how their personal data is used and whether it's actually a pleasant experience. People talk about your brand, they leave reviews, they speak on their social media accounts, and all of this can be monitored. And it's actually a great source of feedback and knowledge. So if you are a marketeer yourself, there is definitely information for you to make better decisions. It's the beauty of the field. Digital marketing, anything and everything can be measured. And it's one of the most beautiful things about the field and one of the reasons why I personally love it very much. I'm just checking if the chat has been bursting with questions, but no, that's completely fine. We can move on. Customer journey mapping. It is something we spoke about. It's related to the lifetime value. Here, I wanted to show you a really quick example of what customer journey mapping could look like. Essentially, you're trying to understand what are the touch points where a customer or a potential customer is interacting with your brand. how they are interacting with your brand, and what their expectations at that point or touch point actually are, so that you can provide them with the right type of experience and you have good enough reasons for them to follow through as they go and navigate their relationship with your brand. So here I divided the cycle into 4. Very simple. It can be divided into many more, but for the purpose of this call, let's just divide into 4. We have acquire, welcome, engage, and win back. The acquire stage. It's a stage where you're trying to convert your prospects into site visitors. And then you're trying to convert your site visitors into your subscribers, your members, your shoppers, or your audience, for all I know. During the welcome stage, you have captured the personal data of this person, or you have engaged with them in one way, or they have engaged with you. What you're trying to do in the next stage is to welcome them. Show them what your brand is about, provide them with a clear idea of why your brand exists, what you sell, for what reason, what is your mission, what is your statement, what are your CSR activities, what do you for the people around you, for the community that this brand exists within. This is when you convert your subscribers to your onboarded members, people who actually understand your brand and are ready to make their purchase decision. The largest chunk is the engage section, and it's the most interesting one from the performance perspective. That's the time when you're looking into how to activate your members, how to show them what you've got to sell and have them actually buy it. This is the time when you provide them with entertainment. This is the time when you reach out during special anniversaries they have in their life. Or this is the time when you reach out when, again, they gave you a certain insight or signal about change in their life, and suddenly you can pick up that signal and change the way they engage with you, and you communicate with them. And you can also reward them. Reward them for the loyalty. Many companies these days would have a loyalty program where they can collect some points for their repeat purchase and in turn change these points for something other of additional value, or a trip, a competition. Anything and everything within the engage stage works well. It can be a tutorial. You can organize an online webinar like here we are today and have them experience your brand while they can learn something, which is the additional value you're providing as a brand to your potential customer. But no relationships last forever. Here is the win back section. This is the time when people start feeling like you might not be the right brand, or they start feeling exhausted, or their life changes a little bit, or their preferences changes, or they're forced to change something about their life because, I don't know, a global pandemic hit. This is the time when brands lean to some incentives to bring these customers back. So you may think about something like early access. Imagine that you're dropping a unique set of sneakers. You are the sole DXB, and you have really cool sneakers coming on the shelves in 2 weeks' time. But you know that you have customers who are willing to buy, but they might be a bit tired of you. Why don't them bring back and show them that you appreciate them by giving them early access to this drop? What that means is that you send them an email saying, "Hi, John," or "Hi, Laura. We've noticed that you were looking at new sneakers on our website in a few weeks' time. We have this job coming in, and we would like to invite you to participate in an early access. It will last for 2 days only. You have the exclusive right to shop before everyone else. How about that?" Again, example of a personalized experience where you take into consideration the data you have available and the signals your customer is showing you. In this case, maybe Laura wasn't engaging with the newsletter for the past 6 deployments, and that led the brand to think, what happened? Laura used to be such a great customer. What has changed? Last but not least, in the win back section, we have a promo code. It's a very easy technique how to have people appreciate you because you're providing them with something extra. And there is a beautiful psychological element to it too. When you go onto a website, you see the full price and you're provided with a promo code that you type in, you hit the button and suddenly 20% is cut off the price. That is the cherry on the top. You are immediately more likely to complete your purchase because you're given something that will bring down the price and it's just something for you. There is this uniqueness and experience that is tailored and designed just for you. If we move forward, this leads me to the last part of this call, and that is the great data exchange. Here, I'd like to speak about a few of the concerns, few of the topics that are very much dominant in the public domain. It's very simple. If there is no data, there is no personalization. Once people become anonymous to the brand, they cannot be treated on a personalized level because they simply have, the brand simply doesn't have any data to build a personalized strategy on. And people are more and more often realizing that it's the data and attention that they are providing to companies like Facebook or Google. And they are more and more asking themselves, how is this data really used? Who has access to the data? And is it worth providing my personal data to brands like Apple? So there are definitely growing data privacy concerns. You must have heard about something called GDPR. It's a European legislation that came into place at around 2018, where customers and consumers are given much better set of rights on how to access their personal data collected by third parties and how they can actually ask these companies to have their data erased. I mentioned it's European legislation. However, it has been implemented across the whole globe in some form or another. Another thing, privacy first media buying. Again, another topic is the cookie death. Some of you might have heard cookies are a bit of pieces of files that are collected or saved on your computer as you go through your website experience. Whatever websites you visited, where you clicked, all of this is captured so that advertisers can use it later in order to personalize your experience and provide you with the right type of ads. Well, a lot of companies have suddenly said no to cookies. Among the first ones were Apple and Mozilla Firefox, among the two providers. So Safari and Mozilla Firefox, being browsers, no longer support third-party data, or in very limited way. Google is looking into the same. And with no cookies, there is no personalization or very limited personalization. So there is a huge segment and actually a Google project called the Privacy Sandbox, where the leading experts on data privacy and digital advertising are coming together to find ways how to provide personalized experience without being the creepy uncle looking into everyone else's personal data. First-party data over third-party data, a huge shift in the business industry. People are now aware of the fact that the only data you can rely on as a brand, that's the data you have collected yourself. That's what first-party data is. If you sell tickets to a theater, as you go through the transaction, your customers will provide details, they complete the payment, and you collect their data as this transaction happens. If the same person also gives you marketing consent, you can then use this data, first-party data, which is your first party because it's your customer. You can use this data and build a personalized experience for them as long as you have their consent. While third-party data is data that is collected by someone who does not have a direct relationship with the person whose data is being collected, and then uses it to provide personalized experience or enable digital advertising. An example here could be something like Facebook. Me providing or selling tickets to a theater can go to Facebook and say, look, I have this amazing theater. I have 1,000 tickets to sell, and I want you to help me understand who of these people you have access to is likely to buy this ticket. Facebook will look into the data they have available. They will look into the brief you have available, and merging these two, they will create digital advertising that will be targeting people whose likelihood to purchase a theater ticket is greater than to the average. That's an example of a third-party data-led campaign, but there is a shift. More and more companies are looking into generating their own first-party data. More and more companies are suddenly coming up with loyalty schemes, having you subscribe into things like supermarkets. Subscribe to our loyalty program at your supermarket, and the next time around, we will give you a free yogurt. Well, it doesn't sound like an amazing offer, but there is data involved. And the supermarkets people, they have a lot of reasons for you to provide them this data so that they can provide you with a better tailored experience, which in turn is more likely to have you convert. And the last but not least, machine learning personalization. I'm conscious of the time. I know I'm already 3 minutes going over, but I'm just still gonna capture this one. Personalization to today is very much limited by the amount of people the marketing department has, because the personalized experience needs to be thought out. It needs to be designed, it needs to be tested, and it needs to be maintained. For that, you need people. Well, not anymore, really. Machine learning personalization will allow, and it already does allow, for marketeers to put together all the options they can think of, upload them onto the system like Google and their agile bidding on Google advertising, and have the machine learning to actually run multiple tests at once and determine which of these multiple options is the best for the right person at the right time. It is definitely a field that will be growing much stronger in the upcoming years, and it's definitely one to keep an eye on. Let's move it further. I've captured a lot, I've spoken a lot, for which I'm very sorry. Now we have 15 minutes left, but before I open the floor to your questions, I wanted to say there is further reading and further listening. Once we conclude this conversation, I'm going to share with you all these links in the chat box so that you can click on whatever you fancy. For those of you who like to read, there are a few articles. For those of you who like to listen to podcasts, there are 2 podcasts I'd like to recommend. If you will take away from today anything, I would be very happy for you to discover Think with Google. It is a great source of information on digital marketing. Google is really at the forefront of digital advertising because they have to. It's their source of making money. And Think with Google is a great source of information from various different disciplines. So that would be the one thing I would highly recommend if you consider moving on to a marketing job. Which brings me to some sources. You will have this presentation available if you wanted to read more. There are a few sources. And now this leads me to the final stage of this. I'd like to speak briefly about Qureos. Qureos is an apprenticeship platform that enables students like you and graduates to learn the in-demand skills required for workplace. They are very kind to seek people like me who help them build this amazing platform and have students and graduates like you where we all come together and we can learn from one another. You can always find them on social media. Here are some of the handles. Very easy. bequreos on Instagram, while Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube are Qureos. And the last but not least is this last one. If you prefer to stay in touch with me, I've put together some of my details. There is a little QR code, which if you scan, it will lead you to my LinkedIn page. Feel free to request a connection and feel free to message me at any point. And now I would love to open the floor to your questions, your experiences, or whatever you have to share with the rest of us. I am checking. There is a question, if I'm not mistaken, from Taylor. Let me just read it out for you. Thank you, Thomas, for sharing such great presentation with us. Now I'm a master analytics student, and I would like to know what kind of analytics tools are mostly used in real industry. Great question. Great question. I suppose this relates to the type of business you are. The industry standard that you cannot really go wrong with is Google Analytics. It's the most commonly used because it's simple, and for many companies, it's actually for free. So I would say Google Analytics would be one. Let me just pop it into the chat box. Google Analytics. There's other option called Adobe Analytics, which will provide you with the similar level of detail. Different companies, they have different options, different reasons to choose one of these two. On the other hand, Google Analytics has been going through transformation, and Google has really been pushing a lot in terms of having people understand the reasons why data is so important. And they have something called Data Studio. Basically, Data Studio is like a better version of Google Analytics. It allows you to tap into the information you have available from your website, your app, through Google Analytics. And in Data Studio, it allows you to visualize all of this information that can be then presented in a very nice and easy to understand way. So Data Studio from Google would be something I would also explore. Some of Tableau. Tableau is much more business orientated. It allows for a very sophisticated and advanced data visualization. It is a platform that data analysts would actually be using a lot. In our organization, there's a whole team called Commercial Business Intelligence team, where Tableau is one of the tools they use on daily basis because it just allows them to modify the data and have better understanding of our customer needs. And then another way how to look at data would be Power BI. Power Business Intelligence, I suppose, is the shortcut. And again, it's a sophisticated, advanced tool to understand business data. Taylor, I'm just sending you the answer right away. Have a look. I would suggest to start with Google Analytics and Data Studio from Google. These two will provide you with a very solid foundation if you move forward. Of course, no worries. And we have another question, and I'm very sorry if I pronounce your name incorrectly. Elkana? Thank you very much for sharing such valuable information. I'm currently a communication and media arts student, and one thing that is always emphasized to us when we create communication projects is the importance of knowing our audience. So I would like to ask, before personalizing, what data do you use to segment, or how do you segment your audience? Great question. Great question. Here, I'd say if you don't have any in-house data, if you're approaching a project from a perspective of a student or a person who doesn't have access to the business data from their organization, please don't worry, there is plenty of data available. One of which I would say is something called Google Trends. Google Trends is a platform by Google where you can go and search for what people are searching for in your region, in your city, in your town. Google Trends will allow you to understand better what people are searching for. And that will in turn give you a better idea of what is important to people at the time. And that will in turn give you a better idea on how to segment your audience. So imagine that your communication project is about, let's dream big, launching Expo 2020 in a few days' time. And you're supposed to target audience who has never heard of Expo 2020. How would you go around that? Well, there is a way you can design your communication where you say, search for all people who have searched for Expo 2020, and then avoid targeting the segment. So basically you are reversing the strategy. You're saying, find me all the people who search for Expo 2020. Therefore, they have heard of it because they're already searching for it, and avoid advertising to them. Advertise to everyone else. In this case, it means that you would be advertising to people who have never searched for Expo 2020. And that's the goal of your presentation, of your project. So Google Trends would be one example. If I'm thinking again out of the pocket, I could say, look at reviews, look at customer trends. If your project is related to flights or bookings, Google again, Google, oh my God, I keep referencing Google, but they're really good. I'm sorry, but they really are. They have launched something called Travel and Hospitality Insights. It is a tool that will allow you to understand what searches people do in terms of flying somewhere, what destinations are in demand, or what destinations are in demand from booking a property perspective. So you could be a travel agent, you could be an airline, you could be a hotel owner, you could be an Airbnb. And this tool will allow you to understand if the general public is involved or interested in flying to, I don't know, Bali, for example. So I hope I answered your question to a certain level. If not, feel free to follow up and we can discuss it further. I can see that there is another one from Benjamin. Hello, Thomas. Thanks a lot for the session. I discuss on a product verbally with my friend. Next thing, I go online and see an ad on the same product. Does it mean my phone listens to me? Can you clarify how it works? Well, this one is a bit of a gray area, to be honest, because I find myself often thinking the phone listens to me. And a couple of years ago, there was a picture of Mark Zuckerberg who left his phone and his laptop on a table. And in the picture, people noticed that his camera and his mic on his laptop were taped, suggesting that even Mark Zuckerberg doesn't believe that people are not listening to him. So it's a very, very difficult one to truly say it's either or. But from my research, most of the companies currently do not have the capabilities to listen to you and in real time engage with you to show you the product you were just talking about. It's actually machine learning that is picking up on the signals you have had in your digital footprint. I know it sounds weird, but these prediction models are very much advanced at the moment. So imagine that you spoke with your friend about a product verbally, but the friend already might have searched for the product. And because you and your friend share a lot of similar background, or maybe you share a lot of similar digital footprint, the prediction model identified you as a person who could potentially be also interested in the same product your friend already was. And that would be my answer. I have no proof to say, yes, they are listening. On the other hand, I have myself felt like that many times. But from my research, what the research suggests is that predictive models in consumer behavior are far more advanced than we actually think. And therefore, we sometimes feel like the devices are listening to us while it is actually the ads that were predicted for us to like or be interested in. I hope I answered your question a little bit or shed a little more light on the topic, Benjamin. Feel free to let me know if otherwise. Taylor, what's the most important skills and quality to be a good marketing analyst? Being a marketing analyst, you need to love information. You need to love numbers, and you will have to be able to find behavioral patterns in numbers. What I'm trying to say is that if you are a great analyst, but you are unable to communicate your findings back to the business, while everything makes sense to you, for the rest of the business, you're talking in numbers and they are unable to action on your insight. So I would say that for anyone who is in marketing, it's really important to develop two set of skills. One set of skills is the hard skill. In this case, looking into being an analyst, how to manipulate numbers, how to put together a query. For that, you could be learning about Python. You could be learning about SQL and how you ask the right type of question to get you the right type of answer, the right type of data for you as an analyst. But the second sort of set of questions I'd say would be how to take this raw data and build a story out of it. If I tell you, let's have a look at an example. We have still a few minutes to spare. If I look at the core insight from the data as a data analyst, I could say, last week we saw an unexpected 100% increase in our bookings on the website. That's it. So great, you sold more, but why? What does it mean? What is the context? How can I leverage this information? What is behind the reason? So you need to build a story. And here's an example from just Friday. On Friday in the UK, the government announced that countries like India, Pakistan, Qatar, Sri Lanka, they are coming off the red list. We immediately saw a spike in sales on our website by 138%. But it was me or my colleagues in the data analytics team who needed to bring these two things together to make sense out of them. Why we see spike? Oh, because government relaxed the rules. People are able to travel. And if you put these together, then you can next time expect to know that when there is a government announcement that is likely to relax some of the rules, you may well be prepared for the situation that will follow from your previous experience. And that is that there will be likely a spike in your performance. And that will allow you to put more marketing money behind advertising at the right time because the market is prepared to buy and you can capitalize on that opportunity. Did I answer your question, Taylor? I hope I have. If not, let me know. Perfect, no worries. We have 1 minute to spare, but if you guys want to stay a little longer, feel free to drop in another questions. Otherwise, I'm gonna say thank you very much for having me. This was great. Your questions were on point, and it's always a sign of a very smart audience where the questions are coming like yours have been. Great questions. Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure. If you ever have any other question, you have my details. And the last thing I wanted to say is thank you, Joanna, for bringing me on board this great project, because I have thoroughly enjoyed this hour we spent together.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Thank you each of you for your questions, for keeping Thomas on his toes with all of the questions. It's good that we're kind of like wrapping it up now, otherwise the questions will keep coming. So thank you so much for all of the input, the examples, the stories. You've really tied together so many new concepts and made it so simple and easy for easy for all of these new apprentices to kind of understand and pick it up. So really, I'm so thankful to you and appreciate you spending your hour with us. Hopefully we'll have you here again doing another session very soon, where we'll get to interact further as well.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
I'll be looking for it.
Amazing. Thank you, each one of you, for being here, for spending your hour with us. I hope you've learned some new things. You have a lot to take away. Feel free to reach out to Thomas if you'd like to. Tell us about what you've learned. We'd love to hear your feedback. Tell us about what else we could do for you, other topics that might be of interest to you. I will be sharing the recording with each one of you. I can also share a feedback form. So if you will fill that in, we'll know what kind of topics are of interest to you, and we'll definitely set up webinars for that. That's it. Thank you so much for being here. Hope you have a good rest of the day wherever you are joining from. Thanks for dropping the links as well, Thomas. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Hope you have a good rest of the day. Thank you, Thomas, once more.
Thank you, guys. Have a lovely afternoon or evening. Goodbye.